I'd like to call this meeting to order. Charlie, it's 7:04, and we'd like to get started. I'd like to call the meeting of the Urbana City Council to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Here.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Jacobson?
Here.
Mr. Madigan?
Here.
Ms. Marlin?
Here.
Mr. Roberts? Mr. Smythe?
Here.
Mayor Pressing.
Here. The first item is the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting, December 5th, 2016.
So, I move approval.
Motion by Ammons. Is there a second? Second by Smythe?
Smythe.
Okay, any additions or corrections? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. Are there any additions to the agenda? Okay, we'll go to petitions and communications. And actually, I would like to limit any new people signing a card to the end of public participation. We have a lot of people, and so I'd like to limit the comments to 3 minutes a person. Megan Flowers? Hello. Would you like to speak? Yes. Okay.
Thanks for your time. I'm here speaking on behalf of the City Immigration Forum and also myself being a citizen of Champaign. Just wanted to say thank you for all of your work putting this sanctuary ordinance together, to listening to your constituents here, and building a solid ordinance, and really utilizing all the knowledge in the community to really push this work forward. So I want to thank you for that, and I hope, and also saying just from a perspective of Champaign County, or Champaign, City of Champaign, I hope that Champaign is watching and taking notes, and that I hope that we can also replicate something similar in City of Champaign, and hopefully we can get these two cities working together to continue this work and being a welcoming place for all people despite their documentation status. So I just wanted to say thank you, and looking forward to working with all of you.
Thank you very much. Mike Doyle?
Good evening. My name is Mike Doyle, and I'm speaking tonight with two hats. First, as a resident of Urbana and as a board member of the CU Immigration Forum, and second, as executive director of the University YMCA. As an Urbana resident and a board member of the CU Immigration Forum, I'm here tonight to urge you to support the sanctuary ordinance or resolution that you're considering tonight. Since there's so many people here to speak tonight, I'll limit my comments to two aspects of the proposal. First, I want to commend the city for making improvements to the current ordinance, as I understand it, with policies related to city services and the conduct of city employees that will have a real impact on people living in our community. If I understand it correctly, this is not just a symbolic vote, as some have suggested, but provides real protections to all residents of our community. Second, I know there are some who are concerned that voting in favor of an ordinance stating our city's commitment to being a sanctuary city would lead to a loss of federal funding. But I think it's important to note that until some new policy is enacted, there is nothing in the current ordinance or the changes you're considering that threaten any federal funds that come to the city of Urbana. Instead, I think Mr. Trump's threats are actually more about trying to silence our voices. His threats are intended to intimidate communities such as ours that welcomes and embrace immigrants. And I think it'd be a real mistake to begin backing away from taking a strong stand because of such threats. In fact, the best way to defeat any effort to cut off federal funds for cities that share our values is to speak out strongly now and send back a message to this administration that there is resistance in the heartland to his immigration policies. So I hope you will vote yes tonight and send a strong message about our values and beliefs, while also sending a message to the immigrants in our community that we stand with them. But I'm also here to speak as Executive Director of the University YMCA. As many of you know, the YMCA has a long history and rich history of welcoming immigrants to our communities. In fact, in 1856, our nation's first known ESL program was developed by the YMCA for German immigrants settling in Cincinnati. The University of Y has been
You
proud
have
of our...
1 minute, Mr. Doyle.
Yep. Okay. The University of Y is proud of our being part of that welcoming tradition. Most recently, so I'll skip through a little bit. Most recently, our student leaders from the Y played a key role in the formation of CU Immigration Forum and the creation of a Spanish-language helpline, La Línea. As director of the Y, I want to encourage the city to remain fully engaged in this issue beyond the passage of this ordinance. I suspect there will be some very exciting opportunities coming along in the next few weeks, and we hope the city will be an active community partner. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope I pronounced your name not too terribly. Ogi Yumar Freya? Did I mangle that too much? No, that's fine. Okay. Would you like to speak? No. Okay, thank you. Sandra Otten.
Good evening. I am here to talk to you about the Times Center being closed down. I am a citizen of Urbana. In 1999, local, state, and federal funds of $1.4 million were used to build the Times Center in downtown Champaign. It was in good faith that these governmental bodies, including the City of Urbana, entered in an agreement with the local service provider, Community Elements, to operate the building as a men's emergency homeless shelter. While the Times still operates as a 20-bed transitional program, the up to 50 men's emergency beds was shut down in July, while the buyout from Rosecrans was in the works. Community Elements was purchased by Rosecrans, who has 40 drug and alcohol programs in 4 different states, but they don't operate any homeless shelters. The closing is due to lack of will to provide emergency homeless shelters on the part of Rosecrans more than anything else. Sheila Ferguson, the local director, says that it's not possible to open an emergency shelter in the Times Center because there's no funding for staff or materials. She said the shelter operated at a loss of $250,000 for over 6 years. That's less than $41,000 per year. That's a very small bridge for Champaign-Urbana to cross. The United Way and others, calling themselves the Consortium of Service Providers for the Homeless, is garnering donations of $28,500 for 3 months for 4 full-time staff and supplies. The only problem with their solution, that is a 3-month pilot program that has multiple cooperating churches at the core. That's the core of it, multiple cooperating churches. They hope to operate from January 2nd of 17 to March 31st of 17, and then puts another solution in place next winter. It's a piecemeal pilot program. The better solution, Champaign, Urbana, the county, townships, and mental health board need to agree to fund the staff required for the reopening of the Times shelter, while the legal agreement with Rosecrans only required 5 years of operating the building as a homeless shelter, which is amazing to me. We gave them $1.4 million and only had them operate for 5 years, but that's
you have
what
1 minute, Ms. Otten.
I'm probably going to go to 5 because I prepared 5 minutes. There's no reason that our homeless should be denied access to a building that we paid for if we can provide the money for the services. I want to come back to a point I made earlier. The closing is due to lack of will to provide homeless services on the part of Rosecrans more than anything else. If it was truly due to lack of funding for services, then don't you think that they might have come back to you and said, if you collectively don't come up with $46,000 to pay for services, you're going to completely and forever lose a $1.4 million investment that you made into the community? Well, Community Rosecrans did not come back to you and say that. They just shut it down. And then when pressed, they vaguely said it was due to funding issues. And now, quote, that door is closed. This petition that I have of 1,200 signatures is to urge us as a community to tell Rosecrans we'll come up with the funding so that you don't lose money while running the emergency shelter, but you need to do what's best interest of the local community. I challenge the assumption that Rosecrans couldn't be persuaded to use the building for the purpose of which it was funded if all the governmental agencies came together and said, we will fund the services if you open the building back up.
Miss
more
Otten.
time.
Move
Okay.
2 more minutes.
I just wanted to,
Move 2 more minutes.
do I have some more time? So I'm almost done anyway, but there is, it was in the paper this week, and then somebody said, well, it still is being used. I agree, it is being used. It's being used for 20 transitional beds, but it's not being used. There's 50 place for 50 mats in there, and there are people freezing today. They also said that it wouldn't be applicable because there's homeless men on the streets who wouldn't stay at the Time Center. That's true. There was Urbana Bill who wouldn't have gone to the Time Center, or other people who wouldn't go to the Time Center. But there's still a lot of people who need that very service. I spoke, just one last thing, I spoke to a guy named Chris this week. Maybe he's in the audience, I don't know. But he stayed there on the mats for 3 months, and then he moved into the transitional program back in 2005. Then he went to Parkland, and then he went to U of I. There's success stories that are, it's an investment not just in keeping people from freezing to death, which it's that also, but it's saving people's lives on many levels. So I really do urge you to get together I'm asking you, Mayor Pressing, to convene a meeting with the city manager of Champaign, the county board, Rick Snyder, and the mental health board, and figure out how you can figure out to give Rosecrans that message that we will fund the services. We will find a way to do it if they just open the building back up. Thank you.
Thank you. Francis Boyle.
Thank you, Mayor Pressing and members of the City Council. I just want to say how honored and pleased I am to be here to speak in favor of this resolution reaffirming Urbana as a sanctuary city. As you know, I did all the legal work 30 years ago to make Urbana a sanctuary city, and it's very gratifying to see Urbana reaffirming itself as a sanctuary city, which it has been for the last 30 years. I've been advised that, assuming you pass this resolution tonight, and I hope you do, we will be the only sanctuary city in downstate Illinois, south of Chicago, to the great credit of the city of Urbana. I want to thank Mayor Pressing for being the spark plug and driving force behind this resolution from the moment we first approached her. And I also want to thank everyone on the City Council. The last 2 times I've been here, we've had some debates, discussions, and I want to commend all of you for doing your duty as public servants. The text is fine. I've consulted with the people I represent here in town, and as I'm sure you'll hear from others, they fully support it. It's an outstanding piece of work by all of you. And finally, my time is almost over, but I did want to read into the record from today's New York Times editorial page about this directly relevant to what we're doing here tonight. Quote, "A recent Global Strategy Group poll found that Americans oppose 58% to 28% repealing President Obama's DACA program, which shields the young immigrants called dreamers from deportation. A Quinnipiac poll taken after the election found that Americans strongly support 72% to 25%, allowing unauthorized immigrants to stay, with 60% supporting a path to citizenship. This support is higher than at any point in the 4 years it has been asking the question," Quinnipiac said, unquote. I will give that to the clerk here. It's from today's New York Times. As you know, let me conclude that Donald Trump was elected president today by the Electoral College. Certainly, I personally would hope that when he assumes the awesome burdens of the presidency on January 20th, he will reconsider the statements that he has made in the campaign and move this country toward comprehensive immigration reform, which, by the way, his predecessor, President George Bush Jr., fully supported. And there is bipartisan support for this. I would hope after January 20th, that will be the direction in which this country will move. But if not, Urbana, the city of Urbana, all of you will have stood up and been counted for the fair, equitable, and just treatment of the undocumented who live among us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have many people who have filled out these input cards, and I'll read their names. And I think you've checked that you don't want to talk, but if you do, let me know. First is Tyler Camp in support of Urbana as a sanctuary city. And then we have Elise Dunham reaffirming Urbana as a sanctuary city. She chooses not to address the council. Brian Dunn, petition regarding Times Center. He doesn't want to address the members, but I'm assuming he's in favor of having it opened for the homeless. Lorenzo Macedo, I believe that is the sanctuary city. Yes, he is in support of it, but does not wish to testify. Jesse Bauer does not wish to testify, but supports the sanctuary city. Julie Watkins is in favor of the sanctuary city and also the Times Center to be open, but does not wish to address us. Sandra Otten already did. Nima Homami, is that correct? It supports the sanctuary city and does not wish to speak. Jacqueline Hanna, did you wish to speak? Okay. She supports the sanctuary city. Ben Grosser supports the sanctuary city. Kate McDowell supports the sanctuary city. Megan Smith is in support of the sanctuary city. Tim King supports the sanctuary city. Jennifer Straub supports Urbana as a sanctuary city. Ravi Hasanadva, is that correct? Supports Urbana as a sanctuary city. Bishop King James and Reverend Dr. Evelyn B. Underwood are concerned about the Dr. Ellis subdivision sewer problem, but do not wish to address the council. Andrew Torrey supports the sanctuary city. Kristen Davis, she says closing the Times Center. I assume that you are in favor of having it open for the homeless. Kristen Davis does not wish to testify. Katie Snyder is in favor of the sanctuary city. Virginia Madsiri, did I get that right? Orchard Street supports the sanctuary city. Jeff Putney is in favor of the sanctuary city. Emily Curlin is in favor of the sanctuary city. Marianne O'Grady supports the Times Center situation, and wants the city to consider the acquisition of the building for it to be open. Marizianne O'Grady, I guess here she is again, Sanctuary City. Matthew Quiroz supports the Sanctuary City. You wish to address the council?
Hello, everyone. I'm Matthew Quiroz. I'm a graduate student at the university. I'd like to thank the City Council and the community members for all the support on the Sanctuary City movement. I think it's very important and uplifting. I myself am of Mexican heritage. My parents were both born in Mexico. And so it's very personally uplifting to see this sort of support, especially in light of the university's rejection of the sanctuary campus label, which I think is largely motivated out of fear of federal funding and other legal repercussions. But in spite of these threats that Trump has made, many cities across the country have reaffirmed, and even a couple have newly adopted this sanctuary, the sort of, although it's vague, the precise definitions, but I think it's very important to to stand together in these sort of times. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean Malahy is in favor of the sanctuary city. Stacy Gloss favors the sanctuary city. Charles Suggs supports the sanctuary city. Eamon Kuo supports the sanctuary city. Ming Kuo supports the sanctuary city. Jordan Henricks supports the Welcoming City Sanctuary City. Jordan Henricks supports the sanctuary city. Madeline Whitesell supports the sanctuary city. Angelina Hartkey Holzman supports the sanctuary city. Zena Dolan supports the sanctuary city. Giovanni Vega would like to speak. Giovanni Vega.
Hello, everyone, again. Thank you for letting me speak once more. I'll be brief since I have 3 minutes. I wanted to first say that I don't know if any of you knew, but yesterday was International Migrants Day, as proclaimed by the United Nations General Assembly, and it's a day to celebrate and acknowledge the contributions that migrants have in their host countries. And so I think that passing this resolution today would be a wonderful way to celebrate this. It's very opportune, I think. I also want to mention that despite the fact that we have a lot of support here today, not everyone was able to make it. And so I've got a letter here that was signed by over 200 members of the community that I would like to present to you, and I'll give it to the clerk once I'm finished. The majority of them, actually 61% if you care to know, were from Urbana, and others were from Champaign and other adjacent communities. But I think it's important to know that even though they don't live in Urbana, our community is not, or Urbana is not isolated, and people work, shop, have friends and family that live here. So I think their opinion also counts. And I also I'm hoping that the folks over in Champaign are looking at your wonderful example, and hopefully they will follow suit. And then finally, I wanted to offer myself, and I'm sure that I speak for the rest of the CU Immigration Forum in saying that I'll be more than happy to help translate this resolution into Spanish, and we can probably help finding translators for other languages so that we can make it available to members of the community that would benefit from reading it in their home language. So
That's a great idea. Thank you
Feel free
very
to
much.
contact me for that. I'll be more than happy to collaborate with you in that regard.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Having 200 people sign a petition is better than having 200 people try to fit in this room, because the fire department would not allow it for safety reasons. Okay, Lisa Schur supports the sanctuary city. Amala Dolan supports the sanctuary city. Robin Sheely supports a replacement for the Times Center for the Homeless. Beth Hoza supports Sanctuary City. Devin Day supports Sanctuary City. Midge O'Brien is in favor of passing Sanctuary City. Katie Harrell supports Sanctuary City and opening the Times Center. John Milano supports Sanctuary City. Carol Inskeep supports Sanctuary City. Roger Thorson, is that correct? Supports Sanctuary City. Karen Aram supports Sanctuary City and opening the Times Center. Mara Dolan supports Sanctuary City. And David Baker supports Sanctuary City. No, he doesn't. He opposes Sanctuary City and would like to address the members of the council. David Baker? Hi, yes, if you could take no more than 3 minutes?
Wow, 3, huh?
3?
Can you give me time to boot up? I didn't know you were going to call me.
Sure. When,
That's it.
Good evening. Let me begin by saying that I actually advocate for an individual to defy a law when one cannot morally reconcile that law. I also follow up such advocacy by reminding an individual that they should be prepared to accept the consequences of breaking a law, even if it happens to be a bad law. Unfortunately, I can't offer such advocacy to this council. You see, breaking a law is a deep moral, personal choice that can only be made by an individual. Perhaps some of you are a bit confused as to your roles as council members. I trust you'll eventually come to terms with what your duties, whatever they might be. Regardless, I assure you that no electorate can power a city council with the capacity to act as an individual's moral compass. While lawmaking is absolutely a political process, law breaking has no place in city government. We continually repeal bad laws and replace them with new laws, and the whole while we respect the rule of law. The process takes time. Frankly, what this city council endeavors to do is simply a mess, and it has no place here. It has no place in city government.
You have 1 minute, Mr. Baker.
Perhaps we would all be better off if we just gave matters more time. Another symbolic gesture aimed at striking out at our perceived adversaries, it risks so much and it serves nothing. And that's what I have to say. Thank you.
okay, thank you very much.
Okay, any questions?
We'll have a discussion when we bring up the resolution.
Thank you. I'm going home.
I don't think you should debate him. Did you have a question for him?
I do have a question.
Oh, Mr. Jacobson has a question for you.
Thank you.
So we have, as has been discussed at other times on council, we have limited resources for law enforcement. And so in that context, and one of the things that this resolution is about is that we really think that cooperating with federal authorities in enforcing immigration laws is way, way down on the list, because we're having a hard time keeping up with violent crime, property crime, etc. So I guess my question for you in that context is, what other things that we do in law enforcement would you like to give us a lower priority to in order to cooperate with enforcing federal immigration law, or would you be willing to pay more taxes to support that?
That's cute.
Well, you talked about our place in City Council. Our place in City Council is to figure out how to best serve the public with the budget we have. And I'm asking the question, framing it in those terms.
So, what do? Somebody's pulled over for a ticket. Well, since 1986, an officer hasn't yet asked an individual whether or not they're documented or not. You know, if that individual's broken the law, we turn them over to county, and county will ask that question. Effectively, what you're asking us to do tonight, what you're proposing to do tonight, has no practical function. It's only symbolic. It doesn't cost the city anything more or less. You're being intellectually dishonest about it. It will cost the city not one thin dime more to not pass this law. We don't oblige the federal government today, nor did we since 1986. So, of the 39 deportations that occurred last year, 2016, in Champaign County, none of them was by the hands of any of us Grand Urbana people turning anybody over. We just didn't do it. So, you want to talk about the cost? I don't have a PhD in math, but I know that 0 from 0 equals 0, okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
James Kilgore does not wish to address, but is in favor of Sanctuary City and reopening the Times Center. Don McClure Jr. Is support of Sanctuary City and opening the Times Center. Janice Muscovius would like to speak, and she opposes Sanctuary City. Hi, you have 3 minutes.
I can't even begin to tell you how much I have enjoyed working with international students. It's been the greatest 10 years of my life when I was the owner and director of an English language school, and I had international students from all over the world. And every one of them, well, not everyone, many of them would just love to become citizens of the United States. And many of them tried and did it legally and appropriately. And I'm very proud to have been able to help them with their English to be able to get to that point. My concern is I find it objectionable that any governing body will say, you know what, we're just going to do our own thing. We're either going to break the law, if it's a law of the United States, to cooperate, or we're just going to refuse to cooperate because we just want to do what we want to do regardless of the law. So I think it sets a bad precedence. Instead, I would like my governing officials in my city of Urbana to be able to say, you know, if I disagree with the law, let's go ahead and change it legally. Let's do whatever it takes to legally change the law. I would like my city governing officials say, I support the people in immigration that have one heck of a tough job. I know them. I've worked with them. I've assisted them to try to keep the legal ones here, and the people that were doing inappropriate things while here to try to get them out. I can't begin to tell you how difficult it is, because right now, today, there are people here in our city that are here illegally doing illegal things, including offering money to women that they would marry them so they could stay and be a U.S. citizen. I don't approve of doing things illegally, and I think it's an embarrassment that we want to say, oh, we're above it all because we have a better idea. If you've got a better idea, let's do it legally. And it's an insult to those people that tried so hard to become citizens the right way.
Thank you. Taskin Sintoglu is in support of the Sanctuary City but does not wish to speak. And Camilla Glowacki is also in support of a Sanctuary City but does not wish to address the members of the council. So thank you all, and we will move on. Unfinished business. unless there are other communications from council members, did you want anybody else? Diane?
Yes, I was asked to pass along a message. I got a call actually from a resident of Ward 5 who wasn't able to reach Dennis. I guess he's out of town. So she asked me to pass along her message of thanks, and I certainly agree with it. Thanks to Urbana Public Works and our public safety officials, police and fire, for the wonderful work they did this weekend in making our streets passable and working to keep us safe. Sidewalks, driveways, and parking lots are still an issue, but we were able to get around in the streets, and we owe all of these folks a great round of applause, I think.
Yes, we do.
And that
Urbana
message
Public
was from Laura Huth.
Yeah, Urbana Public Works is well known for getting the job done. And I tried driving on a township road on Saturday. I was very happy to get back to Urbana streets. Bill?
Yeah, we got an email from Mario Ryan in support of a power purchase agreement with renewable energy credits. I didn't get a chance to print it out. We just got that this afternoon. But if somebody has that, maybe we could read that into the record during that when we discuss that.
I will. Anyone else? Aaron?
So I wanted to convey and relay a message to everybody about a event that took place today in Springfield. I had the pleasure of accompanying my wife, State Representative Carol Ammons, as she was an elector for the Electoral College. It was a bittersweet time, of course. She was honored to serve and to cast her vote for the right person. And we just wanted to convey that here in Urbana, whether it's a sanctuary city or winning all of the precincts, we were a sea of, we're an island of blue amongst a sea of red. We know that we're going places from a progressive standpoint in the city of Urbana. And we just wanted to convey to everybody that no matter what happens in these other places with the Electoral College, we will continue to move forward in the city of Urbana and Champaign County. We also had the pleasure of joining Secretary of State Jesse White at Barksdale School this afternoon with the tumblers. The young children there were just elated with the energy and the experience that they had watching the young men and women tumble, and hopefully we can get them here to do something in the city of Urbana one day, maybe at one of the Jetty Roads events or something like that, you know. I just wanted to convey that message to everyone.
Okay, thank you. Okay, reports of standing committees, the Committee of the Whole. Mike Madigan.
Okay, so the Committee of the Whole met on Monday, December 12th, and sent the following agenda items to the City Council. Resolution number 2016-12-070R, a resolution reaffirming Urbana as a sanctuary city. The Committee of the Whole sent this item to the Council with no recommendation.
Okay, I would like to say that we have a resolution that was initially started out to be what the City of Chicago had drafted, but we've changed it so it's really purely Urbana. And there are a number of people to thank. Francis Boyle, first of all, wrote some of the legal analysis that's under the therefore be resolved items number 6 and 7. And Dennis Roberts took out any reference to individuals. Some of the cities have passed things like asking Governor Rauner to do something about this, and this is just purely what Urbana is going to do. Eric Jacobson contributed the 1, 2, 3. He contributed a lot and got all the action items under therefore be it resolved, which was a good editing thing. And Bill Brown set the legal context in items. It would be the 4th whereas and the 5th whereas. No, the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th. No federal law requires local police to routinely inquire about immigration status, and any such law would likely be challenged on constitutional grounds. And whereas in order to support the police-community relationships built up over the years with the immigrant community, ensuring they are comfortable reporting crime as witnesses or victims, local policies must not target communities based on perceived immigration status. So I think this is a product of a lot of people's input. And Charlie, you want to say something?
Move approval of the resolution as included in our packet.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Smythe, seconded by Jacobson. Any discussion? Any discussion? Yes, Mr. Jacobson, then Aaron Ammons.
So I think almost everything about the resolution itself that needs to be said has been said. But I want to, I guess, I want to talk to the notion that people who disagree on this, or people who agree with, the majority of the council, or people who disagree with it, we really need to have a civil dialogue. And we really need to recognize where we're all coming from, whether we agree or not. I had a voicemail, and the person was so astounded that I replied because he was opposing the resolution. And he and I went out for coffee in my ward, Strawberry Fields. And we talked for about an hour. And one of the things that became really clear is that we were talking, we had some differences in priorities that we put on different values, but we had a lot of values in common. We were arguing from a different perceived set of facts. One of the things that's happening lately is that there's a lot of facts out on the internet that are not facts. And I usually try to go, when we have any sort of issue like this, I try to go to peer-reviewed papers in the social sciences, and the question that I was looking for is, what evidence is there, hard evidence, on the effects that immigrants have on communities and on the United States? And it's really pretty clear when people look at it objectively, immigrants really are beneficial, have been beneficial to this country, or beneficial to the communities they come into, on balance. One of the very interesting things is that immigrants statistically have lower crime rates than native-born Americans. And that appears to include undocumented immigrants, although it's a little harder to get the reliable statistics on that. And then there are some websites that will tell you the exact opposite, but they don't appear to refer to any really hard data. The data say that. And one of the things that we had, and one of the things that had in this conversation, is that we both talked about our families. When our families came to the United States, under what circumstances. And he agreed with me that throughout our history, immigrants have made the United States stronger and better. And I said, but you don't think so now? He said, no, not now, not the new immigrants. And I said, but do you realize that every wave of immigrants, the people who are already here, said that the new immigrants shouldn't come. There wasn't room for them. They were changing the culture in bad ways. And every single time, the people who had come first, when they said that about the new wave of immigrants, every single time they were wrong. Do you think you might be wrong now? And he just kind of smiled and shrugged. And he didn't necessarily agree with me, but we parted on good terms. I think these conversations are really important. It's really very comfortable to talk into the echo chamber, but I think we ought to get out of it too.
Aaron?
So I'm going to kind of say some of the same things in a different way. Giovanni, I'm going to definitely follow up with you on the translation if this does pass, because I'm in contact with quite a few people in the Congolese community who would love to see this resolution and many other things translated into French. I'm sure there are others for Swahili and even Mandarin, so I'll be in touch with you about that. Eric, I agree that the discourse needs to take place and it needs to be civil. I just want to say that, just because I can sit here calmly and say something horrendous doesn't mean that it's civil. So for me, as an African American or an African person born in America, to sit and listen to the descendants of people who raped, robbed, and murdered in order to gain this particular land. They raped, robbed, and murdered Native people, African people, and those who inhabited Texas, California, and Arizona, etc. By and large, are the ones who are coming forward us saying that the behavior of undocumented people is illegal. And throughout the wake of establishing this place we call North America, the violent raping, robbing, murdering, stealing of land, ignoring the laws of the land at that time was done by the descendants or the predecessors, the ancestors of those who come before us today raising these particular issues. So if we're going to have a civil discourse, then that discourse will recognize history in its full manner. It will not ignore the plight of the people or how you got to the place that you are in now. Otherwise, it is seen as uncivil in my eyes. If we're going to have a conversation about who's undocumented, who's illegal, then we would have a conversation about everybody who's undocumented and who's illegal. Okay? Otherwise, we're not going to use that terminology if, in fact, you want to have a conversation that's going to move us forward. So I'll just leave it at that for now.
Bill Brown?
I think it's important that we update this from 1986. Circumstances have changed, and there was a lot of talk this year about mass deportations based on religious practices, things like that. And I think it's important to remind people that that's illegal. That is against our Constitution. And everything in our ordinance, as far as I can tell, is legal. So I think it is timely. I think it's important that we do that. I'm still not real happy with the sanctuary language, because I think that it could be taken to mean that we really have the ability to protect you, or to protect someone who's not here legally, or who's not authorized to be here. But we don't. I mean, if ICE comes and wants to take somebody away, they're going to do it. And I hope that everybody realizes that. But we can certainly not contribute our resources to enforcing federal law, just like we don't contribute our resources to enforcing copyright law. There are certain responsibilities that we have, and we have enough on our hands to do that. So I think it's important to kind of restate our sanctuary policy, or our welcoming policy, and I'm fine with passing it as sanctuary. It seems like most people are fine with that, and I know that there's a connotation to that, I guess, that that people like. But I think it's important to remind people that there is this due process that people deserve. You can't just deport a bunch of people without giving them the chance to talk to a judge, and you definitely have to give them the equal protection of the law. You can't base decisions on religious preferences and things like that. In response to Ms. Musco-Janice's comments about working with the international community at the university, I think part of what we're trying to say with this is that not everybody has those same opportunities as those international students at the university. A lot of people here are migrant workers that may have overstayed a visa or something like that, who could definitely benefit from that kind of instruction, that kind of language instruction, legal resources, help filling out forms, whatever it is that the university is providing and the people associated with the university is providing for the university students, also needs to be done for people that don't have those same resources and same capabilities. So that would be my only comment, I guess, for that. So I'm looking forward to voting for this, and that's about it.
Is there anyone else who wants to comment? Diane?
Very briefly, but if there's one thing the election taught us last fall, is that words matter. and the words that were spoken throughout the campaign last year incited fear in people on both sides of this issue. And I actually got more phone calls on this particular issue than I've had probably in my entire time on the council, and a number of them were from people who opposed it, and we had some very long conversations about this. But in the end, I am going to vote for this. I think these are good words. They tell the world where we stand, and I think we stand with the people who live in this community and contribute to it mightily. So I'm going to support this. And my husband actually wrote a letter in support of a student in the DACA program a couple of years ago. So we've had some experience in this area too. So words matter, and I stand behind these words.
Anyone else? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ammon?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
No.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you all. Okay, we'll move on. Ordinance number 2016-12-114, an ordinance approving a
You
power...
want me to take care of this?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead, sorry.
We only voted you down. We didn't throw you out.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
I think. All right, ordinance 2016-12-114, an ordinance approving a power purchase agreement with renewable energy credits with WCP Solar Services, LLC. The Committee of the Whole sent this agenda item to the City Council with a recommendation for approval, and on behalf of the committee, I so move. Second.
Okay, motion by Madigan, seconded by Smythe. I'd like to read the note from Maria Ryan, if that's okay. Dear City Council members, I regret I will not be able to address you in person this evening as you're considering a power purchase agreement with WCP Solar Services. I strongly encourage you to vote in favor of the agreement, as the projections that Scott Tess has provided show the city stands to save between $4,000 and $21,000 as a result of entering the agreement. As a taxpayer, I see the agreement as fiscally prudent for the city to enter. As chair of the Sustainability Advisory Commission, I favor the agreement as a solid step toward achieving the goals set forward in the city's Climate Action Plan. It expands our local capacity to generate renewable energy. Most of you will recall that during the development and passage of the Climate Action Plan, concerns were raised about our reliance on the purchase of renewable energy credits to meet our climate goals. Although the agreement involves the use of RECs, it will result in the tangible local installation of PV equipment, which I hope you will agree is a step in the right direction. The power purchase agreement presents a rare opportunity for the city to take no regrets action that will help achieve fiscal and environmental goals. I hope you will approve it this evening. Maria Ryan. Bill Brown.
Yeah, I think for the purchase of RECs, our vote last week actually makes this week's vote much easier because I think the main purpose of the REC program, the REC purchasing and selling, is to make a project feasible. And if the project's feasible without selling RECs, and it can get done without selling RECs, then you shouldn't do it. And if you need to sell RECs to make the project feasible, like a lot of our homes that have solar installations on them, most of those, I think almost everybody probably that I've talked to is selling their RECs because otherwise they don't gain anything. They've installed solar, but it's actually pretty expensive, and it doesn't pay back over time, so they sell their RECs. But it's also important to remember that these RECs from solar are about 50 times, or worth about 50 times more than the RECs, the voluntary RECs we buy from the wind RECs. So that, I think it's worth taking that into consideration. If this was a bigger project, I think I'd fight harder for selling the RECs because there is some risk involved as far as the guessing what rates are going to be 25 years out. For this size project, I don't think it's a big deal. But since the majority of people voted for it last week without selling the RECs, it was obviously feasible. So that makes my decision tonight easy.
Okay, we have a motion by Madigan, seconded by Smythe. Any other discussion? Mr. Madigan?
Also, when I try to improve my business, I certainly look at what's feasible, but then I also look at the most cost-effective solution. And I would vote for this if it saved the taxpayers the maximum amount of money that it could, but under the scenario that was forwarded to the City Council, that's not the case, so I'll be opposed.
Okay. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr.
Yes.
Ammons? Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
No.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
That motion carries. Mr. Madigan?
Ordinance number 2016-12-115, an ordinance approving a right-of-way lease agreement with MCDJ LLC, 208 West Grigg Street. The Committee of the Whole forwarded this to the City Council with recommendation to approve, and on behalf of the committee, I so move.
Second.
I think it was Ammons by a slight amount, but he's giving it to Diane Marlin. Okay, what a gentleman. Okay, a motion by Madigan,
Sort of like
seconded
selling
by
rights.
Marlin. Any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ammons?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
That motion carries.
Resolution number 2016-12-069R, resolution approving the intergovernmental agreement between the City of Urbana and the Urbana Park District, an agreement for removal of sediment from Crystal Lake Sediment Basin. This item was forwarded by the Committee of the Whole with recommendation to approve, and on behalf of the committee, I so move.
Second.
Motion by Madigan, seconded by Jacobson. Any discussion? Mr. Ammons?
So I was trying to look at some of the concerns that were being raised at the last meeting, and I looked into a few things and also had a conversation with one of the council members. And I was trying to go down the path of saying that shouldn't other government bodies or even private businesses contribute to this as well if the sediment is due to runoff that comes from private businesses, that comes from school districts and all that kind of different stuff. And I thought it made sense, and I still think it sort of makes sense, but it helped me to understand that all of those entities also have to pay the sewer tax, the sewer drainage tax, right? So this is their contribution in some effect. Maybe that I didn't have the exact amount of what do we get from the sewer tax again, Bill? What was the total amount? Okay. Per year, right? Yeah. So I feel comfortable, more comfortable now understanding, seeing it from that perspective. So I'll be voting yes for this.
Okay, anyone else? We have a motion by Madigan, seconded by Jacobson. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ammons?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
That motion carries. Mr. Madigan?
All right, a related ordinance, ordinance number 2016-12-116, an ordinance revising the annual budget ordinance for FY 2016-17, Crystal Lake sediment removal. The committee recommended approval of this agenda item, and on behalf of the committee, I so move.
Second.
Motion by Madigan, seconded by Ammons. Any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ammons?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan? Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
Mayor Pressing?
Yes. That
Ordinance-
motion,
I'm sorry.
that motion carries.
Ordinance number 2016-12-117, an ordinance amending Schedule H of Section 23-93 of the Urbana Local Traffic Code requiring stop signs at certain intersections, Main Street at Smith Road, Tatman Court at Industrial Circle. The Committee of the Whole recommended approval of this agenda item, and on behalf of the committee, I so move.
Second.
Motion by Madigan, seconded by Jacobson. Any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ammons?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
That motion carries.
Ordinance number 2016-12-118, an ordinance amending Schedule J of Section 23-183 of the Urbana Local Traffic Code prohibiting parking at all times on certain streets, Weber Street, Lynn Street, and Wabash Avenue, between Washington Street and Oregon Street. The committee recommended approval of this agenda item, and on behalf of the committee, I so move.
Second.
Motion by Madigan, seconded by Jacobson. Any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr.
Yes.
Ammons? Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
That motion carries.
On ordinance number 2016-12-119, an ordinance revising the annual budget ordinance for FY 2016-17, the MCOR project, 1 Green Street improvements. The committee recommended approval of this agenda item, and on behalf of the committee, I so move.
Motion by Madigan, seconded by Smythe. Any discussion? Mr. Ammons?
Yes, this item came up kind of late for us last week, and it's a pretty large sum of money. I'd like to ask Bill a couple of questions if you come up, please. So I didn't reach out to you this week. I could have done some of that, but now that I have you here, I thought I'd go ahead and ask you a few questions. So could you just explain to me, what is it that has happened that requires us again to pay this amount that you're asking us for again?
We went through 2 bidding processes for the Green Street improvements between Wright and Busey Avenue. And in both cases, the bids came in above the engineer's estimate. The second time, which was a November 4th letting, we had a bid around $8.8 million, $8.9 million. We looked at cutting the project, reducing scope, reducing some of the quantities in an effort to get more to our budgeted engineer's estimate amount. That was not something we could do per federal highway and IDOT regulations for procurement per process. So then, as a group, City of Champaign, the University of Illinois, Mass Transit District, and us met on multiple occasions as to what's our next step. We collectively thought, let's go to our respective bodies and try to seek more dollars, additional dollars. In our case, it was $800,000 more. I met with the mayor and the finance director and others, Craig Schunckletter, to have this discussion. The money is, and the budget amendment ordinance outlines that money is basically coming from reserves and still respecting the fund balance we like to have in our general fund reserves. And we're feeling that this, if we're truly committed to this project, which I think the community at large and the respective agencies and staff are supportive of, it's a very expensive project, but I think it's certainly the right thing to do with respect to so many goals and objectives, primarily accommodating safely, efficiently, and in a good operational way the different modes of transportation, particularly in that corridor. So it's an expensive project. We felt if we were to redesign it, rebid it as the memo states, I think it would have sacrificed a lot of our objectives. And we are already hearing in 2017 a 5% increase in the cost of cement, for example, a product needed to make concrete. So there's labor and material costs. So not only would we be cutting the project to try to meet a new budget, but we're already hearing labor and material costs are continuing at a higher than in the past level. They're getting more expensive. So those were working against us. We do want to take advantage of the full construction season, which is 2017. If we move forward and award this project, the contractor can start in the winter and start doing water main related work, which is less temperature sensitive. If we postpone or redesign and go through all the hoops of approvals, we may lose half of next year's construction season.
So let me ask you, the bid came in at about 800,000 more than what you estimated, right?
Correct.
But we're not the lead on the MCOR project, right?
The city of Champaign is.
So why do we have to come up with the whole 800,000? Why?
Because Project 1, which is what this is, and Project 5, which is Green Street between Busey and Race, are City of Urbana projects. They're our jurisdiction. It's our road, if you will. There has to be a lead agency because the IDOT and federal government makes a agreement with one entity, even though there's 4 agencies. A similarity would be Olympian Drive. There was 3 agencies, City of Champaign, Champaign County, and us. We took the lead in the Olympian Drive project.
So basically, because the road is our road, we have to come up with 800,000.
That's correct.
Okay. I did look at Hanson Place. I believe was that who we went with on this one?
The consultant engineering is a combination of Clark Dietz engineers out of Champaign, Hanson Professional Services out of Springfield, and another firm that had a large play was T.Y. Lin out of Chicago. Those were the major consultant players in this project.
Okay. So I didn't see the other people, but I saw Hanson, and I was going to ask you what I saw what Hanson brings to the table. I don't know about the other places as it relates to opportunities for diversity and what their workforce looks like, and what sort of goals or objectives they would have for this type of project. I was happy to see that Hanson Place has some sort of intergovernmental agreement in Sangamon County or with the City Council in Springfield or something, where they have a minority participation program where they're trying to grow their own. And so I was pleased to see something like that in the works. I'd like to see if the other 2 entities have something like that. It's very favorable for me to see that someone or an organization or business is trying to put forth their own money as well as looking for intergovernmental agreement to do something like that. So I was appreciative to see that they had that type of work going on. Hopefully we can do something like that in the city of Urbana with some sort of agreement going forward as well. But so thank you. I appreciate you answering those questions for me.
Okay, Bill Brown.
On that 800,000, wasn't half of that a contingency or something?
Yes, that's
Because
correct.
MTD is contributing and Champaign is,
correct. The
U of I
university is contributing an additional $200,000, and MTD is contributing an additional $200,000.
So, could you explain what that 400,000 contingency is that we had to come up with an extra 400,000?
Well, any project, particularly of this size, you'd like to have about a 5% contingency, and that's just for unforeseen, unknown conditions. Projects, particularly this complex, can have unknowns, change orders, if you will, that could be several $100,000. So I didn't want us to come to this meeting with you asking for $400,000 and 6 months or 12 months from now and say, oh, we need an extra $400,000 because of the contingencies. Hopefully, and ideally, it'd be great if we didn't have to pay a penny more, but this is a complex job, and there's undoubtedly going to be some change orders. Now, it could go in the other direction, too. There may be some things that we thought would be more expensive, and a wild card in road work is how much undercutting or removal of bad soils is there. It's just no matter how much soil exploration you do, it's hard to determine. We try to be very conservative with that. In other words, more undercut removal of soil to put stone back in to build up the pavement. If it's less, we can save tens of thousands of dollars just on that. But so those are reasons why.
So even if the bid had come in right at budget, you might have been here asking for $400,000 contingency?
Because it would have been just right on. I mean, when we budget any of our projects, we will put a contingency in there because that's typically what happens. There will be change orders.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? Okay, we have a motion by Madigan, seconded by Smythe. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Anning?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan? Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
Mayor Pressing?
Yes. That motion carries.
Thank you.
Ordinance number 2016-12-120, an ordinance levying taxes for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2016 and ending June 30th, 2017. The Committee of the Whole recommended approval of this agenda item to the City Council, and on behalf of the committee, I so move.
Second.
Motion by Madigan, seconded by Emmons. Any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ammons?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
That motion carries.
Ordinance number 2016-12-121, an ordinance directing the Champaign County Clerk to abate the tax levy for the General Corporate Fund for the tax year beginning July 1st, 2016, and ending June 30th, 2017. Committee of the Whole recommended approval of this agenda item, and on behalf of the committee, I so move.
Second.
Motion by Madigan, seconded by Smythe. Any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ammons?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
That motion carries.
Ordinance number 2016-12-122, an ordinance directing the Champaign County Clerk to abate a portion of the 2016 tax levy related to General Obligation Bond Series 2012 and General Obligation Bond Series 2014. Committee of the Whole recommended approval of this agenda item, and on behalf of the committee, I so move.
Motion by Madigan, seconded by Smythe. Any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr.
Yes.
Ammons? Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
That motion carries.
Ordinance number 2016-12-123, an ordinance amending the 2005 Comprehensive Plan of the City of Urbana, Illinois, adoption of the 2016 Urbana Bicycle Master Plan as an amendment to the Comprehensive Plan. Plan Case 2272-CP-16. The Committee of the Whole recommended approval of this agenda item to the City Council, and on behalf of the committee, I so move.
Second.
Okay, motion by Madigan, seconded by Jacobson. I think we have some additions to this or corrections.
We did, based on some comments made by Councilman Smythe at the Committee of the Whole meeting. I spoke with him earlier today, and we came up with just a couple of changes that you have in front of you.
Okay.
So I think they're pretty straightforward and nothing major, but if you have any questions, I can answer those.
Charlie?
Yeah, one of the issues was how to look at percent increase in bicycle usage in the community. In 2002, we were measured at 3%. Here in 2016, at the end of 2016, we're at 9%, a growth of 6% over that time. But also we have some other measures here too. You know, how we measure from one decade to another decade. Things have changed. So, and one of the other things in the plan, it also talks about it's not just commuting, which is to work and school, typically in that measure, but there's a measure of using your bike to go to other things. So that's why I wanted to expand the numbers in the comprehensive plan to the bike plan to include those two versions of measures that are there. And similarly, in the performance measure assessment later on, there are new applications and new ways of measuring bicycle usage and so on. And I'd like to be able to encourage our staff and others to use those as they come, or even help develop some of them. I know RPC, for example, has an app that you can put on your smartphone, and when you bike it takes a look and reports on the route that you take. So we can use that heat map that is generated to help us determine what are popular bike routes, for example. And so where are people avoiding going by bicycle too. So those are the kinds of things. So there's two tiny little changes, so I ask that be included in the motion.
Would you make an amendment?
It's a friendly amendment, or...
Okay, it's a motion by Madigan and Jacobson. Do you consider this a friendly amendment?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. Well, then we'll vote on unless there are any other comments?
I have a question.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, what do you think this bicycle master plan costs the city?
So if you actually have on a flash drive table 44, which
Yeah, I didn't get there.
I think it's on page like 310 or something. Let me.
I was too busy generating sales tax for the city of Urbana to get to page 312. So
Yeah, I can pull that up.
We have Craig Schunkweiler here who deals with this.
Hi,
Would
Mike.
you, would you
Craig,
like
how
to
are you, buddy?
try to
Good,
answer that?
good. So, basically we set aside $55,000 annually for maintenance of the bike lanes. To date, really I would say we're not spending additional funds for infrastructure as far as installation of bike lanes, because we're actually reallocating space that's already there and we're just putting in new lines. Even before the master plan, we were installing as a city multi-use paths, and we would get grants for those. So we were doing that just even prior to 2008. Since 2008, most of our efforts have been to reallocation of space and then the restriping of those or the signing of those, which is annual basis of $55,000. So as far as, we I'll give you an example. We have resurfaced roads for bike routes. We have reallocated space on Washington Street over by Brookins. But other than the striping cost, there's really no infrastructure cost for that. Now, the cost that could be there in the future is if we end up sharing with other agencies to get a bicycle coordinator, which is recommended in the plan. That could be a cost, that would be a future cost. That would be something we'd have to look at. And what we've talked about is potentially somebody that maybe resides within our regional plan commission that is jointly funded by perhaps the city of Champaign, the city of Savoy, and or village of Savoy, and the University of Illinois. But that's about as far as we went, because quite frankly, the city of Urbana, we don't have the staff, or we don't feel it's appropriate this time to come directly to council to ask for that to be funded 100% by the city. Right now, what we do is it's largely Public Works and Community Development that shares those responsibilities. Did I answer your question?
I think so. I just hear from a lot of residents about their observations on a daily basis of the lack of use of our miles and miles of bike lanes. And they're frankly resentful, a lot of them. And I get way more of that than I don't get any praise for saying, hey, great job, you guys, on your bike master plan. It's that road used to be 3 or 4 lanes, and now it's 2. So I hear a lot of blowback from folks, and it just that concerns me. I understand the goal here. I get it. Part of the problem too is you can have beautiful bike lanes this time of year, but they're like skating rinks right now, so they can't be used for months out of the year. So I continue to have concerns about any money being spent on things like this when we have an understaffed police department, among other things.
Anyone else? Okay, we have a motion by Madigan, seconded by Jacobson, with a friendly amendment. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr.
Yes.
Ammons? Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
No.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
That motion carries.
Okay, the final agenda item from the Committee of the Whole, state law required me to recuse myself as a liquor license holder in the city of Urbana, and I relinquished the chair to Alderman Marlin.
We have resolution number 2016-12-071R, resolution approving and authorizing entering into and executing an intergovernmental agreement for the performance of liquor license inspections, and this was through the fire department. For the
Second.
committee, I so move.
Motion by
Second.
Marlin, seconded by Ammons. Any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr.
Yes.
Ammons? Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
That motion carries. Reports of special committees. Thank you, Mr. Madigan. It was a masterful performance.
Thank you.
Okay. No special committees, reports of officers. Mike Madigan. Mike Munson. Getting too late. It's getting too late.
M squared.
The other Mike Munson
Urbana
or the
Free
real Mike
Library
Munson?
Foundation's annual fund drive is underway. We're off to a very good start. We're hoping to acquire enough donations to buy the vacant lot that used to be the Alder Law Office's property. Anyone who's interested in donating can go on to either the city or the library website and find out more. There's an article on both websites. Thank you.
Anyone else? Libby Tyler, Community Development Director.
Yes, we have another home dedication for Habitat for Humanity. This is for the Empson Family Home in Urbana, 1306 West Dublin. That's this Thursday, December 22nd at 6 p.m.
Okay. Any other reports of officers? We will move on to new business. First is resolution number 2016-12-072R, a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement with the Board of Trustees of the University of Illinois concerning certified housing inspections. And John Schneider is here to explain this.
The proposed agreement for inspection services for private certified housing is substantially the same as the city's had with the university for several years. The number of buildings inspected has ranged from 25 in 2008 to 22 this year, and I believe there were 22 also last year. The agreement provides for a 3% increase annually for the first 3-year period and up to 3.5% for each 2-year extension that is executed. The inspection process is completed by mid-January, and payment is made by February 28th each year. Legal staff and fire department have reviewed the agreement, and staff recommends approval of the agreement.
Charlie.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Smythe, seconded by Marlin. Any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr.
Yes.
Ammons. Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson.
Yes.
Mr. Madigan.
Yes.
Ms. Marlin.
Yes.
Mr. Smythe.
Yes.
That motion carries. Next is resolution number 2016-12-073R, a resolution approving a preliminary construction engineering services agreement with Hanson Professional Services Incorporated for the North Lincoln Avenue construction from Olympian Drive to Saline Court. Bill Gray is here to explain this.
Yes, thank you. Just a quick update. First of all, this is the Lincoln Avenue project where it currently dead ends at Saline Court and it goes north up to Olympian Drive. We've had various discussions and presentations of this in the past. We did have very favorable bids on the November 4th letting. In fact, the low bid was about $500,000 under the engineer's estimate. So this was one of those good results. We're in the process of awarding the project. We're going to have an in-house staff person be the construction services person that's going to be in the field. But like projects like this, there is consultant support needed and testing services support needed for a project, which requires, and there's federal funding to help pay for these services, hence the reason for the agreement in the packet and the reason to take this to council for the mayor to be given the authority to sign the agreement with IDOT to seek those funds and reimbursements. So it's $36,900, $37,000 for the most part, and this project hopefully will get started next month with some tree removal work starting. We're going to get a newsletter out to the residents up there to give them a heads up of work starting, and we think that it will be completed by this fall. And when the road is open, we're going to open Olympian Drive at the same time. So we're anxious, excited for this to get started.
Thank you. Any questions for Bill? Bill Brown.
I know recently we were talking about the one dig policy. I was wondering if there was any opportunity to do fiber optic while we're building this road. Is there opportunity to cooperate with people in putting in conduit or anything like that?
I've had no inquiries from any of the fiber companies to date for that. All utility companies are contacted on a project like this very early in the design phase. But certainly there is right-of-way available, largely unencumbered, that can accommodate future ducts. within that right-of-way.
So maybe not so much with this project, but with the next part of the MCOR project, when that gets bid out in a couple years, seems like since that's going through such a residential neighborhood, that might be a good one to keep in mind for that.
True. And we haven't really contacted fiber companies in that design. That design really hasn't started yet, but point well taken.
Aaron?
So I spoke of, this is where I got Hanson from.
Sure.
But I do want to ask, are we in Public Works now keeping track of, for instance, a company like this that we are going to do business with? Are we investigating to see what their workforce actually looks like, right? Do they have a diverse workforce and things like that?
Right. Well, for the people in the field, the answer is yes. I get what's called workforce utilization reports weekly. So I do know whatever that utilization might be of the workforce in the field. So the answer is yes.
So you're saying that, I don't know if I'm following exactly.
No.
I understand you're getting some sort of report.
You want to know who's
field?
actually out in the field, and the answer is yes. Besides our staff person that sees who the workers are, that person generates a weekly report and says on Monday there's 8 people and this is who they are. Friday is 6 people and what have you. So that is a report I receive.
So we have actual physical documentation that
Yes.
I could look back at and say, Monday through Friday, when Hanson comes out, we know what the workforce looks like there.
That's correct.
And we're tracking it through gender and ethnicity.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Charlie? Sorry, go ahead. Are you
Oh.
finished?
Well, I just wanted to highlight this minority participation plan, December 2013, by Springfield Mayor Mike Houston. The plan was implemented and funded by the city of Springfield, Sangamon County, and Hanson. And I'm going to look into the other details and see how we can partner with, maybe with the county or whatever. I'd like to see us invest into something like this, right? And maybe we could partner with some barbecue place or something to get people to get them to be business partners with us or something to make that work.
Okay, Charlie?
No, I definitely support growing your own, and getting people in the system. So, yeah, look forward to hearing the details on that. On this project, though, I'm really hesitant because it's the same players as Windsor Road, and I just, and it concerns me a great deal that we're, again, we're hamstrung by IDOT to take the low bidder, in this case a low bidder, and I'm just very concerned about potential outcome and the problems that we might have. So I may not support this.
So what would happen if there were cracks on this one?
Well, tonight's action is really support for the testing service that, inspects, tests the materials used, so that's important in any job, particularly this job. And it's also the engineering support. So a no vote, and whatever the yes/no votes would be, does not do anything with respect to the contractor not doing the work. That's something that IDOT awards the contract to. We're not the awarding authority. But what is necessary is that we have the engineering and testing service support for a project. I would just say that I've had conversations with the contractor, and due to the heightened awareness with the Windsor Road project, they have a huge incentive to do the very, very best they can to, if you want to use the word, make amends. So I think that's number one. Number two is that we are taking an additional oversight, if you will, on the project and the construction means and methods to do the very best we can. So.
Okay, Charlie?
Yeah, so I think Hanson designed this road, right?
They did, yes.
Yeah, they did. So Is it designed similarly, or is it a different design from what we have on Olympian? Or on Windsor, I mean.
Windsor, yeah.
Is
Actually,
or is it more like
is-
Olympian?
It's fairly different from the standpoint that we do not have curb and gutter or center median. This is a 2-lane roadway with asphalt shoulders. So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, thank you.
Diane?
Are we hiring extra people for oversight during construction?
No, I don't think it's the extra amount, but we have a person that's very experienced that's going to be doing the oversight work. So
And we didn't have that on Windsor?
we did, but this is actually, we have people on the MCOR project also, in-house people, and we really didn't have the staff to include this project for in-house, and I wanted to avoid paying extraordinary fees for a consultant to be on the field because those are just large costs. So we have employed a recently, as of tomorrow, retired 30-year IDOT field service engineer that's going to work for us. And that individual with much experience is going to be our eyes. And there'll also be another person from the county highway department that will be out and assisting too. Occasionally we may be out there with our staff, but for the most part this individual will be out there.
Let's hope for a different outcome.
Okay, is there a motion? Oh, Charlie, you wanna
I
say
would just
something?
say, you know, Olympian, having ridden it on my bicycle a number of times, is in beautiful shape. You know, it is a quality product. And so I know that concrete can be put down without any cracks. So I look forward to a similar successful project on North Lincoln.
Okay, Aaron?
So I'm sure Charlie rode his bike lanes out to Olympia. You had the whole road.
Was that road closed or? It was closed?
So the design for Windsor was done by Hanson also.
I'm sorry.
The design for Windsor was done by Hanson also?
Yes.
But we don't get to choose. IDOT chooses the consultant or the designer for the project.
No, we choose the consultant for the project.
Yeah, we don't have a problem with Hanson.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right, thank you.
Is there a motion?
I'll move approval of resolution number 2016-12-073R.
Second.
Motion by Brown, seconded by Marlin. Any other discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ammons?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
That motion carries. Next is an appointment to the Police Pension Fund Board. Kay Nees, who's very experienced with pensions.
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion by Smythe, seconded by Jacobson. Any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll? Beg your pardon? Oh, just a voice vote then. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. And there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned, and we will see you next year.
Is it January 10th is the
I
next
think it's
meeting?
January 9th. I could be wrong. It's a Monday.
Ninth,
It's
the
a
9th,
Monday.
okay.
Yeah. So have a nice holiday.